a few of us, but I think that it will be really interesting and a very familiar ambient that we will try to create today in this session. And thank you for being today with us. We have, as I mentioned, very interesting URBACT session based on URBACT practices and URBACT cities, and also with other important guests coming from Nourish, Scotland, and also from the Milan Pact and Eurocities. And what we will be discussing today is going through lessons and actions, or maybe actions and then lessons that took place within the URBACT cities and networks. But before we give the floor to our speakers, I would like to make some comments for those that you don't know what is URBACT about. Just a few key points on the URBACT program. URBACT is a RDF funded and European territorial cooperation program, and its main objective is to promote or boost integrated and sustainable urban development in Europe and its cities. And well, we are targeting different kind of cities. In fact, there is no limit of size for the cities to participate. In fact, we have, like here in the scenario, we have cities such as Milan that participated in URBACT, but also Moansartou, that is 10,000 inhabitants, right, Thibaut? So this is a very important point, and sometimes for cities, it's a good window or opportunity of window to then start working in URBACT in an innovative way. We saw it, and we did somehow discuss it about how the linkages also between, for example, the H2020 cities and projects and the work that has been developed within the URBACT networks. And we have like three main strands of activities. One will be this, the main strand will be the exchange and learning of transnational exchange and learning through the networks with cities coming all around Europe. Also, of course, we are really focused on capacity buildings, trainings for civil servants, elected representatives, but also for the stakeholders, the local stakeholders that are very important. And finally, the capitalization and dissemination of our activities and results, that this will be one of its activities. But as Marcelline will mention later, we also have like knowledge hubs on certain topics. And but at last but not least, what we think, I think that it's one of the added values of URBACT is this idea of the URBACT method on how to boost integrated and sustainably urban development policies through this integrated approach, like integrating different dimensions that I will mention later on, but also having this participatory approach, engaging citizens and stakeholders into the development of integrated action plans, and multiplying it with this transnational exchange that there is one motto that will say that is quite significant for this idea, is that we have common problems and we need shared solutions. No? So maybe you are a city in Sweden or a city in Italy or Greece or a city in Spain, but maybe in fact even you have different contexts. Sometimes you find common problems, and from a global perspective you can tackle them better. And this idea that will also be part of this session, the integrated urban development in a more general perspective, not applied to the food policies, because then Marcelline will talk about this later on. It will be the idea that we have like 5 dimensions. This diagram doesn't have all of them, but at least one of the 3 more important ones. Now, the integration, multi-level integration from the bottom up of the citizen participation through the URBACT local groups and the engagement of the stakeholders until the European level and national level, and so how can we establish this articulation of the different policies and perspectives in a multi-level way. Of course, this integration, sectorial integration, horizontal integration between different perspectives, and territorial integration and other kind of integration that I will not go ahead, but maybe we can later on specify them. And finally, what gathers now today all of us is food and food systems and food policies, and for that we will have Marcelline Bonneau, that is a program expert that is also in charge of development of all this knowledge hub and coordination of all the results that have been gathering through the cities. So please, Marcelline, welcome, and it's your turn now.
Thank you very much, John. Can you hear me well with the mask, or well enough? Okay. Just waiting for the official approval. I could hear you very well. That's why I'm asking how it's been. So I wanted to start by providing you with some generic facts about the link in between the food system and climate and their climate impact. But I think we've heard already a lot about those in the previous session, so I'm not going to spend much time on it, just to say that this is really the backbone of our session today, the really nexus in between food and climate, taking into consideration impacts on the environment, on society, on economy, on people, on rural, urban areas, and all that's been mentioned before. So just not mentioning more of this, I think you all know why you're here as well. What I wanted to stress a bit more is the notion that in order to really tackle climate change, when we talk about food systems, it's really important to take an approach which is focusing on the ecosystem themselves. So I've taken this diagram from the very first IPAS food report, which I've always really liked because it really addresses many issues which are tackled by food systems. And the idea really being that if you want to be able to develop the most sustainable, the fairest sustainable systems, you really need to approach to adopt this ecosystem approach, so integrated approach, bringing all these elements together in order to ensure that everybody gets access to healthy diets and nutrition, that we develop agroecology and regenerative agriculture, we go into circular economy, we just have just livelihoods. So looking at ecosystems enables addressing a range of complexity of interactions within food systems, to look at the interconnections between the stakeholders, the interconnections between the problems and their solutions. And all this, as a framework, really underlies the sociocultural, economic, biophysical, institutional factor that shape our food systems. So this is more like a framework. We've talked already a lot about this kind of frameworks since the morning, for those who joined in the morning, but that's really about all the potential also that food systems bring. I think it was in the previous session that we also talked about the positive impacts that food systems have. So it's not only that we mention, always all the negative impacts on the climate, but also how the system itself can be positive and regenerative. And last but not least, adopting such an approach enables ensuring that climate change mitigation and adaptation strategies are efficient. John briefly mentioned integration. I'll go just a bit more into more details in this, because integration is really key in the URBACT method. Here we applied really to the food system as a way to address multiple technical gaps, behavioral changes, market failures, really looking into the 4 pillars that John mentioned. So in terms of transversality, we know different departments, different ministries deal with food. I just talked to someone from the city of Warsaw who's from the Department of International Cooperation. It's the first time I hear someone dealing with food in such a department. But sometimes, or usually you have people from health department or ministries, agricultural, environment. It can be more related to citizen participation, to labor. So it's crucial that when we address food systems, we embed all these considerations in the topics, and also this means bringing together all the stakeholders around the table. So we know it's crucial to have actors from public sector, private sector, civil society, academia, and so on. And we had a very nice session on co-creation and living lives in this regard earlier on today. Another key element is the vertical integration, ensuring that innovation, which is really happening at the local level, evidence that is gathered and that is being experimented at local level, be it the level of the cities, of the regions, is really supported by higher levels of governance, supported in terms of political frameworks, in terms of funding, and really these two work together towards more sustainable food systems. Territoriality, it's really crucial to integrate the food systems in the wider functional urban areas, and really that the systems are not restricted to cities, but metropolitan areas, regional areas, and that it makes wider sense. And last but not least, it's crucial to combine investment in hard infrastructure in buildings together with social innovation and new forms of governance, of working together and developing new initiatives. Bearing all this in mind, the URBACT program is a partner of the Glasgow Food and Climate Declaration, and we already have a few cities which have signed it. One of them is, well, two of them, or I don't know how many of them are here today. And Sophie will mention more about the Glasgow Food Declaration later on. I just wanted to briefly share with you now, to give you an overview of what URBACT has been supporting throughout its networks in the last almost 10 years. So URBACT has supported 9 networks dealing with sustainable food and urban agriculture, 3 networks dealing with the transfer of organic canteens towards other cities. So that for Green Planet Bio Canteens version 1 and 2. You hear more about it today. We've had 2 networks focusing on the link in between urban and peri-urban areas, rural areas, Agri-Urban, you'll hear more about it today, and food corridors. We've had a network focusing on the overall food ecosystem, really from production, distribution, transformation to consumption, sustainable food in urban agriculture, in urban communities, sorry. We've had one network, it's still running, focusing on the development of jobs and skills in peri-urban area in relation to sustainable agriculture, Next Agri. URBAN focused on community gardens, and BPathNet on bees and bees products. All these networks together have focused on all these issues. Usually I go through them one by one, so I'm also a bit surprised by the amount of information that we see. But I try to give you just a brief overview of the information that is available from URBACT cities, URBACT networks. I said 9 networks. It's over 60 cities of different sizes throughout Europe, which have develop different practices, different ideas and solutions in related to all of this. So some have worked on their policy framework, focusing on a policy procurement, designing food policies, setting up food councils. Some have focused on production itself, how to support local production, organic production. They have developed notions of food sovereignty, commons, reinforcing rural-urban linkages, but also self-production and community gardens. All these have adopted an integrated approach, trying to bring together the food itself, whether production, distribution, transformation, consumption, together with climate change, social cohesion, local economy, biodiversity protection, health. They have worked transversally in their administration and with their stakeholders on these issues. Also focusing on improving the supply chain and valorizing local products. Some cities have supported the private sector by promoting innovation, entrepreneurship, jobs and skills, and the use also of food as a new marketing strategy for branding their cities. Some cities have focused on distribution via the retail sector, in setting up market, cooperatives, but also via catering, canteens, public kitchens. Some have focused on circular economy via specific practices on composting, on food waste. Others have focused on food justice, ensuring that everybody not only get access to quality food, but just to food. I'm almost finished with all that's been covered by all the networks and cities. Some have focused on consumers, ensuring that awareness is raised upon what sustainable food means, ensuring that there is a transfer towards more vegetable, protein-based diets, that there is community engagement with a strong education, and last but not least, some cities have worked on further sharing their insights, capitalizing on the experiences by different formats, including university degrees. So all this information you can find on the URBACT Food Knowledge Hub, which is available at this website. And just as I still have 1 minute, just to introduce a session, what we wanted to address today, as John mentioned, it's really the notion of integrated local food ecosystems to tackle climate change. So this notion of integration, this notion of addressing climate change, a notion of entering through this via different entry points. Not all the cities have the same starting point, the same main focus, but all the examples we're going to share with you today can exemplify how, when entering one aspect of the food system, you can actually impact the rest and create a proper ecosystem. So we're going to have a presentation. I'm not sure about the order, actually, but so sorry. Is it the right one? So that health at the heart of integrated local food policies from Moya del Valles, who's been part of a Diet for a Green Planet and Agri-Urban. We have school canteens to develop a resilient territory from Onsartou, which has been part of Agri-Urban and has led Biocanteens version 1 and 2. We have a systemic approach for local food policies by Milan, who's been an URBACT label good practice, amongst others. And we have Sophie also presenting from Nourish Scotland, the Glasgow Food and Climate Declaration, really as local government-led action. So on this, I thank you very much. I remain at your disposal for the debate, for wider URBACT cases and exchanges, and obviously afterwards for any more precisions on any of the topics we won't have covered today. Thank you.
So thank you, Marcelline. Well, so now we give the floor for all of a very nice bunch of speakers that we have today. We will have from, let me see, yeah. I will present them all now and we'll give the floor one by one later on, but the first will be Raúl Broto, that is councillor at Moderator del Valles. Is councillor of many things, but maybe he likes to say that he's a councillor of a healthy and educational city. That is a kind of transversal policy that you are boosting now and promoting in Mollet. And of course, Mollet del Valles is one of best examples that we have in Spain on food policy. Then we will have Thibault Lalanne, if I don't say it correctly, more or less. He's coming from the city of Village, or from in between somehow. From Onsartou, that they are one of the best study cases of URBACT and one of the most active cities in URBACT on food policies, as you also, Marcelline, mentioned. Finally, we have Andrea Magarini, that is chair for the Eurocities working group of food, but he was also involved in all the Milan Pact and also all the good practice that mentioned Marcelline, and he also the Next Agri Network. And last but not least, we have Sophie Chris, that is the project office for Nourish Scotland, that is boosting this the Glasgow Declaration. So we will go now from the general perspective of Marcelline did to the local and then to global. So I think it's a good way to fade in and fade out. So Raúl, the floor is yours.
Thank you, John. And first of all, let me thank John, URBACT, and the organization for letting us the opportunity of participating in this forum. As you can see, today I'm going to talk about this mixture in food policies between health and also some economical aspects. So first of all, let me present you my city. My city is Mollet del Valles. It's really close from here, only 20 kilometers. And as you can see, there is an urban part at the end of the picture that had our 50K inhabitants, but what makes our village special, important, is the other half of the municipality, that is the rural part called Gallecs, that it's our green lung, is a protected space since 2005. So what we tried when we had it protected is just not be a leisure part and a part where people goes there to do sports, to walk. We wanted something more, so we made this bet for a strategic project on agroecology and more specifically on organic farming. So this is also a really important part when we talk about health in our city. First of all, when we talk about policies, strategic policies in our city, we have to take into consideration that there are some things that we cannot change from our citizens, but on the other hand, there are lots of things that we can do to change them and also modify individual lifestyles, such as dietary habits. So from our municipality, from the political point of view, what we tried is to build this pool of public and private resources to all go through the same path and involve the citizens in these new lifestyles, not only from the municipality, but trying to join other agents such as the hospital, the schools, and also the private sector. As you can see, we've participated in URBACT projects. I have to say that it's been such a great experience because, as you may know, Spain had a huge economic crisis like last decade. So URBACT project allow us to keep innovating, to keep working on things that maybe were not the urgencies of the day-to-day because we had so many problems and the resources need to go to social services, for example, but these projects allow us to make important things. So the first project that we participated was Diet for a Green Planet, that it was a network with the leadership of Södertälje in Sweden, and we learned so much about them, and especially we had two outcomes of the project that were very important. First of all, a public procurement model. We were having this public procurement model on the public canteens of our kindergartens. This model has been shared with other cities and other public facilities, and everybody thinks it's really useful also for us. And on the other hand, another key thing that we obtained from the project was that, as you can see in the other picture, we had our own local food policy in 2015 that was approved unanimously and that marked the path that, as a city, we wanted to follow. The second project that was a step forward from the last one was Agri-Urban. In this case, we wanted to merge these three topics: food, health, and also economy. And as I said, we have this green lung, Gallecs, but we want it to be something more. We want to have entrepreneurship there. We want to have some economy happening there with sustainable food policies. So we created this integrated action plan that was very, very interesting. It was a middle-term plan, so now we know where are we going. And as you can see here, I highlighted a specific sentence that is our vision when we talk about our city in these two fields. And I want to highlight the last part, that is that we need to empower citizens to choose nutritious and sustainable food as part of a healthy lifestyle. And how we do it tackling the 6 big objectives that we have in this image on the down part. So we don't have many time, but let me be a little bit in this slide and the next one that are the most important. Here we try to wrap up some of the lessons learned on these two URBACT projects that we participated. First of all, in the first key message, you can see this importance of integration that has been said before with the key stakeholders. These projects let us the opportunity to know these stakeholders, and maybe 10 years ago we didn't know them, so that's the first part, know them. And then, as the second key message said, set up a pool of public and private resources in our city. So now we know, then we work together. So we are now, as I will say later, working in some initiatives together. And then, as the third key message said, it's important to connect the citizens with this whole food chains. When we talk about the whole food chain, what we think is that we have to go from local producers to the health sector professionals. I have to say that they are so happy to participate and to be involved in these projects because they really want to participate in these projects and in this educational point of view on the food-related diseases. Then the fourth key message, raise awareness. This is very important because when you start, for example, with one agent, all the others also join this awareness. For example, we have a school that specifically targets these sustainable food policies. So when they started participating in the project, all the other schools wanted to join. So maybe the start always is a bit rough, but then everything is easier. And finally, this multi-level food governance, regional, national, international, for example, what we are doing here, but also what Barcelona is leading in all the metropolitan area. It's so important for us, so we are always open to participate in this kind of activities. So finally, some success stories about what I've been talking about. First, you can see an award that last year the European Commission gave us regarding an educational project on sustainable food. That was a really good experience that we involved more than 700 students of our city. On the second picture, you can see our building, civic center, that is like the reference on all the environment and food activities. Here you can see a public garden, and they organize a lot of activities. For example, this week is the Bio Week, and it's full of activities. On the third place, you have this QR. The QR, I think, is the winner of the pandemic situation because 2 years ago nobody was using it, but now we all use it. So if you have time, you can enter. It's like a repository of all the activities that we are doing regarding food policies. Then on the down part, you can see this brand that we created, Menja bé a Mollet. What it means is that we are trying to join restaurants, bars, but also the hospital, the market, and other agents in this city brand that they have to feel like a checklist of things, like have tap water, offer fruit, and offer proximity products, agroecological products, and they have this stamp, and it's been a real success. And at last, you see this X here. It's like our more nice project, let's say, that it's an entrepreneurship project involving young women in our Gallecs park, and it's really nice to have these projects that make a better economy there. So many thanks for your attention. I give you my contact here if you have any question. Thank you.
Thank you, Raul, and how it's a very good example on how URBACT is helping cities to have this integrated and participatory approach to boost bigger kind of policies on food, on health, that are topics that are being discussing these days. So it's a good example also to follow and to get in touch, because they are changing a lot of things through these food policies in the city. Another city that is also changing a lot of things in their place is Milan, and we have Thibaut to explain us how is this. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to present the food project of Montsartou. So Montsartou is a city, it's not a village of 10,000 inhabitants, as John was not sure about that. So basically Montsartou, it's a small city of 10,000 inhabitants located in the southeastern part of France, so close to the Italian border, close to Nice, Cannes. And unlike our neighbors, basically, which are mainly known for their famous international film festival, for fancy places where you can spend nice summer holidays, we are mainly known for school canteens, actually. So, and those school canteens are 100% organic and local. So we serve every day 1,300 meals, which are, as I said, 100% organic and local. And actually, this is not new. We've been doing that for almost 10 years. We are going to celebrate the 10th year anniversary next year, actually. And it's been a long-term project because it all started with the mad cow disease in the late 90s, when elected representatives realized that there was a problem when you had to take out beef so as to preserve the health of children having lunch at school. So they realized that they had a potential impact and they could change things, and it raised their awareness. But more than the 100% organic and local, we actually achieved an overall reshuffling or overall revision of the system, the canteen system as such, with the objective of protecting health of kids, of course, but also ensuring the quality of meals. So we have 3 school canteens, and which are located in schools, in 3 schools of Montsartou. And so basically food is produced where it is eaten, so right close to the refectory, so as to preserve the nutritional values of food produced. We cook basically raw produce, as you can see, the apples and vegetables on the picture. There is a great focus also on the introduction of plant proteins. We have 2 vegetarian meals per week, so one based on plant proteins, one based on eggs. And also a great focus on food waste, which was a key line of action for us. You can see on the picture, and I will talk about that later on, that we have had a great work on the adaptation of portions to kids so as to adapt the quantity served, so as to reduce food waste in the end. And this challenge addressed, food waste, was the key for us to achieve this 100% organic 10 years ago. Because we managed to dramatically reduce actually by 80% food waste in 5 years, passing from 150 grams per meal to 30 almost in 2015. And we keep having this somehow this average, and we managed to save around 20 cents per meal, which were then reinvested into quality food, organic food. And so more than 100% organic and local food, we have 100% organic and local food at constant cost. So it didn't cost more to switch, actually. And beyond school canteens and food produced, we also have a great diversity of food education activities. So during the meals, for instance, we have facilitators accompanying children so as to discover the vegetables they have in their plates, or to tell them maybe to finish their plates also. And also extracurricular activities to make them understand what organic is about, actually, or visits of farms, for instance. And we also engage them in this addressing the challenge against food waste by, for instance, as you can see on the pictures, sorting out, food on their plates at the end of meals, so that it enables us, in the end, to monitor food waste and adapt, for instance, recipes or quantity served. And the key result of this, we talked this morning about evaluation of our food project and what are the metrics we can use to evaluate them. We've been evaluating our food project and the impact of school canteens, organic school canteens, since 2013, actually. So every 3 years we have a campaign, we interrogate, we organize surveys towards families, and we've noticed that 87% of families actually have changed their food habits thanks to this. How? The main factor of change are kids, actually, when they go back home and they tell the parents, well, actually, I would like to eat as good as what I have at school, or we should eat organic because. So that was the main explanation of this change of practices. So that's for school canteens, but as you understand, everyone here talk about ecosystemic food approaches, and that was the start. When we organized this switch to 100% organic, we wanted to work with local farmers, but eventually we realized that no one was applying to our bids, to our tenders. So, because why? Because we lost too many agricultural lands in our regions because we are in the French Riviera, and of course you understand there is a great pressure in terms of urbanism. So, at that time in 2010, the elected representatives, almost as a joke, said, well, if no one wants to supply our school canteens, well, we'll do it ourselves. And this is what they did, actually. They built a municipal farm, which is now still existing. We celebrated the 10th year anniversary this year, which supplies everyday school canteens, produces 25 tons per year, employs 3 people, municipal farmers. So we had to create a new employment category, actually, and supply canteens which are located very nearby. Then, when you have a city which is becoming a farming city, because it's a new challenge, then you realize that you have to act also to protect the agricultural lands that are threatened on your territory. And this is what happened when the elected representatives in 2012 decided to triple the number of agricultural lands on the territory. And as I said, we are on the French Riviera, facing a great urbanization pressure. And of course, with the objective of reinstalling, accompanying the settling down of organic farmers so as to supply either school canteens, but also the population. And then another dimension, because it's an ecosystemic project again, governance. So it was in 2017, because there were too many food action which were emerging on the territory. The municipality decided to create a dedicated service. So we have now la Maison d'éducation à l'alimentation durable, so the Center for Sustainable Food Education, piloting, steering food-related actions on the territory in a diversity of fields, which are food education towards elderly, people in disadvantaged situations, for instance, working with local businesses, also working on research action. We work a lot with universities. For instance, we've just launched, or we are about to launch a new survey to evaluate the impact, again, assessing the impact of our food project on health and on children's health and families' health. So we are doing that in collaboration with the Hospital University of Nice. So we hope that at some point we will have some samples taken from children to assess in terms of epigenetics, and I won't delve too much into that because I'm not a specialist, to see whether this project has had an impact in terms of course, obesity. There are some figures that we have, but even going a bit further to see in prospective terms whether we can already identify the emergence of diseases. So those are the things that we do. And I just wanted to conclude, actually, on the importance for us of being part of URBACT with this project by Canteens that we've had actually the first wave that has just finished this year. We've accompanied 6 territories in Europe to develop their own food project. And we had the chance to be selected to reconduct this work with 4 more partners, sorry. For two more years, and with this message that leveraging or using food canteens is great as a lever to work towards organic and local self-production, so also engaging citizens in regrowing actually vegetables for themselves, working with public procurement, engaging this local agricultural transition, and also engaging the city into food sovereignty. And also, if I still have some time, to make a claim from a small city, not a village, but a small city. It's very important for us as a city of 10,000 inhabitants to be part of this European project, to make our project known. And also it's important to say that it is not because we are a small city that it is not replicable at a larger scale. And again, I really wanted to stress what was said earlier, the need to work at a multi-level governance, and maybe to have to accept that there is a need for subsidiarity, that you need to accept that small cities, small territories have the capacity, the competencies to engage ambitious projects. And I think that we have the proof, and we hope to convey this message. And also the message on food sovereignty that we want to pass is not about food autonomy, that we, of course, the objective is not to produce everything that we want to eat on our territory in Montsartou. That would be unfeasible. But to regain control of what we want to eat, of what we want to put in our plates. And one of the key learnings that we've had with Canteens is that we, in Montsartou, we would need to work much more with our neighboring territories to help them reinstalling also farmers. So the message is not, of course, it's a bit against fences and barriers. We need to cooperate with other territories. That's all for me.
Thank you, Thibaut. I think that you put some important stuff in the table and very important key messages that you give. You know, I mean that one of things that putting children in the middle of the food policies is the best way to somehow change things in cities. No, we just saw that with that manifesto and that idea that finally the future belongs to children, and sometimes children are more clever than adults for certain topics. No? So, and the other one is how to articulate this multi-level governance and how these practices that are really changing and with measurable results and impressive results that, as you've shown, are also capable to create European level policies. So let's articulate, and we've been also talking with this with Andrea later on, and I think that we have a strong path to follow with this. So Andrea, you're really welcome, and I think that you have a lot of key aspects in your different kind of levels that you've been also working from city level to now at the European level, what you are doing. I think that it's a very strong linkage from what Montsartou just said. So you are welcome to join us. Thank you very much.
So again, thank you, John. Thank you, Marcelline, for my invitation. And yeah, I'm very impressive to see the presentation of Montsartou, because I find your candidature during the Milan Pact Award of 2019 and seems very impressive, also for all your local effort as well, your European effort with Eurocities, because it seems that as during the plenary was mentioned, more you are sharing, more you give from this community, and you are the perfect example of this. Very congratulations. Exactly. I want to show some example from Milan, not to share some practice, not to share what we are doing in a specific field of action, but to try to share some tips on our journey in defining our commitment on food policy. And so maybe the good question to start is how a city can start a food policy journey. For sure, there is the definition of set of such ambitious goal, and the Milan Pact is 37 recommended action is perfect. Then I think one of the specific tips is to understand the field of action already covered by municipal competencies. So in some cities there are municipal school canteens, wholesale markets, agricultural surfaces, and other on. And understand these pre-existing food competencies is a good starting point. And then connecting the food actors outside the municipality that are working in a field of action with a lack of competencies. For instance, food waste, because in Milan this is the starting point. So we haven't an office that are working on food waste prevention or to facilitate the connection with the other actors, and so was the perfect field of action in which start our commitment. And working in that specific new field of action, so new competence, we are demonstrating the potentiality to have a food team that are working in a systemic approach to engage all the actors. And then, when you are able to demonstrate a structure, a food team, you are also able to commit the entire municipal structure from other departments, other politicians, deputy mayors, agencies, staff, and so on, to work also with the same approach to connecting all the others the pre-existing municipal food competencies. And it's very important because until now, in all of our municipality, we are working in cluster. From the story from Napoleon until now, we are working in cluster in the municipality, so it's not a mistake. But we need to, as also Marcelline mentioned, integrate in both at horizontal point of view as well to vertical point of view. But to work on integration, that is a theoretical approach, you need people that are working, that are able to understand the different connection with a different level of governance. And so this is our food policy journey. And we start also to establish our local political commitment, that is the key, the starting point. If we have a political commitment on food policy, we can also aggregate in the context of this political commitment all of the other action that you want to implement on food policy. And so for instance, in our case, we start studying our local food system, and we do with an external support of Calipro Foundation and an independent research center. And based on these studies, we try to understand the entire food system and also, again, to map all the municipal food competencies. And then define a political responsibility in one person. In our case, is the first vice mayor that is in charge of food policy. All of you already know because I was presenting in the plenary, is Mrs. Anna Scavuzzo that is here. And then dedicated a staff of coordination. And more than coordination, act as liaison among the different municipal structure, because there are some information in the market department that are not known from the educational department, that are not known for budget department, environmental department, and it's not a lack of knowledge, it's a lack of persons that are facilitating this kind of bridge. Because all of us are working in very specific competencies, and these specific competencies are historically structured for understand that specific field of action of a municipality. And then work in an international network as we are doing here, as URBACT is doing very, very well, because working in days like here, we can inspire each other in a proper way. We can go outside to our local busy contest daily by day stuff, and we can have a free day in which we can start thinking of the future of our efforts. And this is very, very important. From my point of view, I learn a lot in all of this kind of meeting. And in Milan, what we do also after this political commitment, we start to engage the food system drivers, because there are a lot, again, within the municipal competencies, of game changer of our food system. In Milan are the school canteens, and here we have the CEO of the chair of the school canteens of Milan, Bernardo Notarangelo, that is an important driver. Here you can see the map of the spreading of these more than 700 of canteens that are managed by municipality due to a municipal agency, as well to the wholesale market that is not spread all around the city. It's a unique point in our city, but is important to maintain the connection in the food system. And then engage social actors that are not coordinating itself, because are single element of a unique system, but we need to work also with them, and also we need to work with the private sector. So all of these actors need to be engaged in a food policy journey. As already was mentioned, monitor the impact, because only if data you can be able to engage all the other municipal departments. This image is a graphs based on one of the main results that we do together, again, with a municipal agency for school canteens, Milan Ristorazione, to decrease the GHG emission of our public procurement. In 5 years, we decrease over 20% of our GHG by changing each 6 months one plate or one ingredient for the plate, and changes plus changes, we were able to see also this kind of decreasement. And with this image, we were able to, from one side, share this result with all the staff of the municipal agencies that have a scientific evidence of their effort, and on the other side, maintain active all of this kind of work. And And when you are able to monitor, to establish a political commitment, and to engage all the actors, you need to expand your ambition. And again, you need to be tactically. We started working with Cariplo Foundation that in Milan and in our region is very, very important. It's a grant maker. We don't receive money from them, but we exploit all of their relations with all the actors that are working in Milan. Then in the second circle, all the municipal agencies that are managing a part of the food system. In the third circle, all the actors in which we have a formal MOU or letter of intent, so partnership, formalized within our mayor's cabinet, and externally other actors that are impacting with our project. And more important, explain to all the partner, the others, and the entire system, because all of these logos are relevant player for our system in Milan, and for them, taking part in the food system narrative, in the food policy narrative, is very important to maintain active all the effort and to co-design together our next joint goal. And then, again, as I already mentioned this morning, participate in this debate. We are in URBACT, so participating in the European debate, and city network like Milan Pact, Eurocities, ICLEI, C40 are perfect. We need also to engage also with URBACT, and I'm very, very happy that you organize this meeting today here in the Milan Pact Forum. And for sure, in the future, we need to do other topics together. And Eurocities, Anya already we mentioned before, is very pleased to work with you. And a starting point for this kind of connection can be also, you are already organized as cluster of all of projects. I follow also, you mentioned Next Agri, in which we are participating, BPAT network with Ljubljana, Bergamo, and all the part of Canteens. I think that are perfect system parallel to what we do in Horizon, and with different approach, because URBACT is primarily to work in policy-making processes. The Horizon is much more related to research, but we can contaminate each other and to try to understand how we can implement better food policy for the future. Maybe we can start to define some specific field of action and organize clusters meeting on that specific action, engaging URBACT, Horizon, and other cities interested in that specific field of action, and together also working towards the European advocacy for the Commission, because in the 2022 there will be a lot of appointment that we need to be prepared from Farm to Fork for European Child Guarantee and other European rules that need to be approved and in which the cities can raise their voice. Thank you again for my invitation, and leave to you.
As you can see, we have very excellent speakers today and very interesting things to say. And I think also there's a point that you mentioned, Andrea, that for us in URBACT, and I always mention, is that URBACT maybe is not giving you a lot of budget, but is giving you time. That is more precious than budget, no? And I think this idea also we discussed a lot with Albert from Mollet del Vallès and so on. And the other is how we can create and share, no? I mean, that transferring all the initiatives, we have these transfer networks and these ideas, and I think that we can somehow start sharing with amongst all these clusters, all these networks, all these projects, because of course H2020 is more on research, and maybe URBACT is more on policy making or sharing or transferring. So we can have to mix all this knowledge, put together, share it, and create better cities. No, and about creating better cities and sharing knowledge, I think we have a very important milestone coming in Glasgow, and one of the key stakeholders in all this process is Nourish, and of course Sophie will introduce what is this Glasgow Food and Climate Declaration and how you can join us before the 6th of November. Thank you, Sophie.
I'll try not to think about how close 6th of November is. Great, thank you so much. Thanks so much to the panel. I'm feeling really inspired and excellent to follow those contributions to talk about the Glasgow Food and Climate Declaration. But first I'll briefly introduce, so I'm Sophie Quist from Nourish Scotland, and we're a small food policy organisation based in Edinburgh, but we work at a Scottish level on food systems transformation. We're an NGO with a membership base, started from a kind of concerned citizens perspective, and we work with everyone from farmers to small community food groups to local governments. We coordinate the sustainable food places in Scotland, and we also work with the Scottish government to create a framework for food systems governance in Scotland that works with different levels. And then this year, which should have been last year, but now this year, COP26, the UN climate negotiations, are coming to Scotland, to our sister city, Glasgow. And so we thought we need to work really hard with other like-minded cities and actors to bring food up on that agenda. And I'm not going to go into the details on my slide because we've already heard this so eloquently from Marcelline, from other speakers from the panel. But we all know that food really needs to be part of the climate agenda. And yet, we haven't seen this sufficiently in COP. COP26 is now a couple of weeks away, and food systems are not firmly in the formal agenda of what's being discussed. There's a lack of focus on the fact that food systems does make up around a third of greenhouse gas emissions, and that we know that. What we also know, and one of the other reasons that we campaign so hard with other cities to move food systems up on the agenda at COP26 and in climate action, is because food systems transformation is key to tackling climate nation health crisis. We've got a beautiful illustration here, which is a gift from an artist in our team that shows the possibility, which I think the cities are illustrating as well, of what a more sustainable food system can look like and how that's integral to tackling climate change. And so, sorry, before I go to this, what I would say as well is that we also know that cities and local actors are a really important part of that. And so that's why we decided to launch a Glasgow Declaration that is for cities and about food, to say food needs to be on the agenda in climate action, but so do local governments, cities, local actors who are already leading the way on food systems transformation. And so this is what's at the heart of the Glasgow Declaration. It's a declaration we launched in December 2020, and which we will present officially at COP26 in just a few weeks. It has 3 commitments for local governments who sign up to say we will develop implemented integrated food policies and strategies for all the excellent reasons that the speakers have already outlined, and that these strategies will have targets to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from urban and regional food systems, with co-benefits for biodiversity, for health, for equality, for our societies to live better, as was articulated earlier. And finally, the Glasgow Food and Climate Declaration calls on national governments, on supranational organizations to create supportive policy environments and to really focus on multi-level governance so that we have food systems governance at all levels and that these are integrated. This is, again, really important at Glasgow because this 5 years on from the Paris Agreement, we're looking at the next cycle of national determined contributions where multi-level governance and where food are equally important. So what the declaration tries to achieve is really to drive up that agenda and say we need to put cities at the table, and food needs to be at the table too. Apart from the 3 key commitments and the call to action in the Glasgow Declaration, the principles at the heart of it is this idea of participatory policymaking, which I think the other speakers have outlined so eloquently, how that's really a game changer for achieving food policy integration. We talk about horizontal integration, of really bringing different departments together, of vertical multi-level integration, and finally how all of these are key elements of a just transition when in food and farming and agriculture. And as we mentioned, we have got broad-based support over the last year from a lot of cities. Anna Skvosa has left the room now, I think, but she was at our launch a year ago saying we cities are ready to take our part in pioneering integrated food systems. And in fact, not just ready to start, but already leading that way. And again, this is why we are working together with cities on this agenda. Now, 2 weeks before COP26, nearly 100 local governments have signed the Glasgow Food and Climate Declaration. And this will be launched on the 6th of November at a presentation hosted by Glasgow City Council, who's a lead signatory. And we will have a big ceremonial event with mayors and leaders from around the world launching this declaration to participants at COP26. So I will finish there and happy to answer any questions about the process and about how this came together, with an invitation, of course, to anyone to sign the declaration. There is still time, just still time, and to join us in Glasgow, either virtually or in person, to present this. To present the Glasgow Food and Climate Declaration, to make this statement about the importance of food systems that everyone at this conference is already so aware of, and leading on to leaders at COP26 who need to hear that message. One final thing, and I'll come to my conclusions, John, just to mention that, that the Glasgow Food and Climate Declaration isn't a new network per se. It really builds on the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact, on C40, on ECLE, on partners like URBACT, and these existing city networks, and it's about elevating the existence of those in the international climate policy area. So thank you so much. I hope to see many of you in Glasgow. Please do get in touch if you're planning to be around. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sophie, and thank you to all the presentations to be sharp in time. I don't know if you have any questions for the debate, but before we go and open mic to the public, we have prepared some questions. But Marcelline, I was thinking on one topic or one idea. We have gathered here today a lot of knowledge, a lot of practices, a lot of actions that are taking place in cities or maybe also at national or European level. And I was wondering, and since we are also talking about integration, what would be the idea of integrating all this knowledge, all these practices for a better policy making on food systems? And what do you think that should be the next? Of course, the next milestone is the Glasgow Declaration and the COP26, but after that, what comes next? We are heading a new funding period at European level at 21-27. We have gathered a lot of ideas, a lot of projects, a lot of things through this last period. These are just few examples of them. So how can we integrate all of this in order to create a European level? I know it's a big question, but I think it's you maybe have some that articulates in a multi-level way. Which would be the next steps, or what would be the next actions to take into account? I'm open to anyone that. Yeah, of course.
Does it work? Yeah. I'm happy to pass the mic on, maybe to Andrea or to someone else. Just maybe the first point is, yes, there is a lot of information that we have seen and we have gathered, but we also know that we need to keep on experimenting, trying out new things, trying out also to go towards more integration as well. In these 3 days, I mean, so far, what we've seen and what we're probably going to see are that many projects are really integrated, and these are the examples we showed you today, but it's still not the reality in many cases. It's still too often the case that we we might have a department working on food waste, for example, which is not communicating with the department focusing on health, whether at very local level or higher level of governance. But, and that is when they already addressed these issues. So we need to keep on working on local experimentation, innovation, just in general in regard to food systems, but more precisely in going towards more integration. And what do we do? What do we do with the knowledge that we have? Is that the question? So I think it's been raised already a few times since the morning, and especially now in our last panels. It's really about learning, exchanging, and supporting evidence-based policymaking. And we all have a role to play. We are all in our different situations. Cities act at city level, but that can influence high levels. URBACT is gathering information and can also share directly with different levels of governance, whether actually city levels or European levels. And many other networks, many other actors, stakeholders have a role to play. So I suppose it's an open call for further collaboration and to see how we can push that all these issues not so much further on the agenda, but to show that a lot has been done and can be done, and plea for new regulations, new frameworks, new funding opportunities. And maybe I can invite Andrea to complement on this. I remained vague, especially on purpose. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, so thank you again. I think that speaking about integration, we need to move tactically and in a smart way, because it's very, very difficult. So it's the main challenge, because there are people, officers, that well know a specific competence, but for sure, if these officers are well know of that competence, doesn't know other kind of municipal competence. And also internally, a municipality, a head of unit that are expert on managing contract, managing the tender with one municipal agency, have that kind of knowledge, and so haven't any kind of knowledge on reducing food waste. And internally, so for an horizontal integration. And again, more complicated if we want to have a vertical integration, for instance, with other institutions. And I think that in this topic, there is the major impact that we can do. In Italy, in the case of Milan, the municipality have a lot of competence, but haven't any kind of competence on health, because it's based on our regional authority. The agricultural competencies, as again at our metropolitan authority in near past, and now again in the regional authority, and that have another kind of mindset to actualize food policy or to actualize actions. And to do this, we need to have some connectors, some free actors that can be able to work at municipal level, at metropolitan level, at regional level. But first of all, we need to understand the point of connection. And in this, I think that there are two regions in Europe that are very well advanced in this. One is so it's not a region for sure, it's a country, the Scotland, that is working a lot on develop an approach at national level, so at Scottish level, with integration with municipal ones. I was in Glasgow for the launch of the food policy of Glasgow, and I have the opportunity to understand a lot of the Scottish legislation for food policy. And in Lombardy, another topic we are trying to connect in some institutional rules on food waste, and because we have some competencies at local level in the field of incentives at fiscal level for the municipality, but the major quantity of incentive is based on regional level, and so we want to connect these two kind of incentives in order to produce high impact. In Catalonia, where we are, there is a Catalan law against food waste, and so there are some elements, some innovation that are happening at regional level, At the local level, so at municipal level, I think that there are more energy on this because we are in the age of cities. So the cities are the place in which are much more simple to connect new field of action, to start innovative action. But we need also to engage our regional authority, for instance, and then also for sure national level. Is a very challenge for the future, but I think that this is one of the tender of the near future that we need to do.
I don't know, Sophie, maybe you can have some words on your own perspective, also on how is maybe the next steps on Glasgow Declaration and how is integrating in this multi-level idea of food policies, how you are dealing with that in Scotland, and maybe it's interesting for the rest of countries and cities.
Yeah, definitely. I'll take those, I guess, two slightly well related separate questions. So in Scotland, you're right. We actually just in early October, the Good Food Nation bill was launched in Scottish Parliament, which is it was dropped during the pandemic, so it's really exciting that's come up again. And this will be, hopefully, once it's been edited and gone through Parliament, will be a framework law on food systems governance in Scotland. So that's a really exciting prospect because we have a very active food civil society in Scotland. We've got lots of Scottish local governments are part of the Sustainable Food Places Network, and many of them have signed the Glasgow Food and Climate Declaration, declared climate emergencies, and developed partnerships between different actors in the food system. But there are still areas that, as you were mentioning, that are not within the city or local government competencies that really require the Scottish government to enact policies that align with what they're coming up with. So, for example, in Glasgow, one of the key things that came out of their consultants with the city was that they wanted more organic food, but there isn't the market to scale up organic food procurement in Glasgow as it looks at the moment. So it's really important to cooperate with the Scottish government on this, and we're delighted that that's moving the right direction. Although I have to say, when you asked your first question, I was thinking we need to also rejoin the EU possibly at some point to make that happen. And in terms of the next steps for the Glasgow Food and Climate Declaration, so we actually have an additional event to the one, or dialogue to the one I mentioned on the 6th, which is really focused on the cities. On the 3rd of November, we're in Eclays and the local government and regional government pavilion at COP26. We've got it's called the Multi-Level Action Pavilion, so it's very related to what we're talking about. And we're getting national governments and regional governments involved in the debate here with the Glasgow Declaration signatories to start a dialogue. And I hope that will be the next step, moving on from having brought cities and local governments together to start having more of a conversation with regional and national governments on this agenda. It's been quite a dynamic process, so we will also come together after COP26 with all the cities that have signed up and the partners that have joined the Glasgow Declaration process, and see what are the next steps. Where do we go from here? One of those things is the Barcelona Good Food Challenge, which is being launched this week, which is one very aligned actions that cities can take once they've made that first step of declaring to work on food and climate change. But I do actually think that this dialogue between different levels is one of the really key important next steps we need to do after COP.
And since you mentioned this dialogue between different levels, I would like to know, and since also you made this public procurement as a key factor of success for food policies in cities, I would like to know Moan Sartous and Mollet del Valle's experience on this multi-level dialogue with institutions, because with regional institutions, with national institutions, how has been this dialogue in this very specific topic on public procurement, because we see this a key factor for boost this kind of policies. Thibaut?
No, you're absolutely right. It's a key topic, and we need to really engage higher level of governance to work on this. So we know that the directive on public procurement is made at European level, so that's the basically the key space to engage decision makers. For us, the key line of action, and we were discussing that earlier with Andrea and the rest of the panelists, would be to give more flexibility for local authorities to work with local producers, because we know that there are a series of guides, there are a series of guidelines that are being produced at European level or at national level to help cities to work with local producers. But even though we know that we can work on our award criteria, on specification, etc., we know that it is still difficult for small local farmers to cope with the burden of those public procurements. So there is a need for further flexibility to be offered, for instance, and that's a key message that we would like to convey as Montsartou, to call for a food exception in public procurement, to increase the threshold in which we can basically contract directly with local farmers. And if you think about that again, as local authority, we need to abide by stringent regulations, while when you delegate this competence to an external service provider, he can decide whether he can work without this abiding by the same stringent regulations. So it's very important for us to bring this message upward, regional, of course, national authority, but also EU level. So that's why, I mean, when I hear this willingness to work together with the Milan Pact, URBACT, for us, it's absolutely, that's going towards the good direction.
Thank you, Timo. Raúl, please.
I completely agree with what you said. I will add some kind of things. In our case, when we talk about the multi-level governance, we also refer inside our municipality, inside our administration, because sometimes it's complicated with our procurement department and other departments to convince them and to have the same line, but finally we made it, so all of you can also do it. So from our municipality, if we go up, we have a good relation with the regional authorities. We have some projects in common. Our governance of our protected space is shared with the Generalitat de Catalunya, the autonomic regional administration, and I think they are also doing good things in that direction. They have also a regional strategy that it's very interesting, even though it's kind of different, because here in Catalonia, from the 7 million inhabitants, 5 live in Barcelona and the metropolitan area, so it's mostly focused on the rural part of Catalonia, but it's also really interesting to have this conversation and to join our point of views. And then we have the European level that, as Theo says, we have this procurement directive that it's quite stressy, but now we are getting used to it. But and then, as you might notice, I left the state level because of Ada Colau said, the mayor of Barcelona in the plenary. I think that is the missing key of all this puzzle. They need to take action, because I think cities are taking action, Europe is taking action, regional authorities, the majority are also taking action, but I miss state level intentions in that field. So let's see if after COP or after other forums or after the Green Deal in the European level, states also start committing in this field.
Okay, thank you, Raúl, and I completely agree with this final statement. And maybe we should invite ministries to do this kind of events, because I think that there's a gap. No, we are talking cities, we are talking at European level, but we are talking without maybe ministers or national level institutions or maybe regional institutions. So I think that we should bring together to this kind of forums and so on. And and as you mentioned, and just quite an advertisement on URBACT also, we also have not only a knowledge hub on food, but also a knowledge hub on strategic public procurement. So maybe we can mix both of them in terms of shared knowledge in these very important and key topics. So I don't know if you have any other questions. Now is your turn. You have this unique opportunity to ask them. or maybe it's too late. We are all so tired and we just want to go out. So thank you very much. We will be also all the information is gathered in the Knowledge Hub, the Food Knowledge Hub, all the networks. You also have the contacts, or maybe you can contact me or as a national URBACT contact point here in Spain. And thank you all of you for being there. Also the ones that been following by streaming, and have a very pleasant and productive and fruitful maybe global forum. Thank you very much.